The only way to do great work is to love what you do. Steve Jobs. Welcome to the Guyana Dialogue. I am your host, Shamiza Ali. Our topic tonight is the objectives and scope of Building Expo 2025 and house lots allocations. The Guyana Dialogue is being sponsored by Coordinating Council of Guyanese based in the US, UK, Canada, the Caribbean, and Guyana. Funding support is by well-known philanthropist Dave Narayan from Dave West Indian Imports. Please welcome my moderator for tonight, Dr. Tara Singh.
And welcome to our viewers.
Good evening, Dr. Tara. Our panelists tonight are Professor Muniram Budu and Dr. Ganga Ramdas.
Thank you.
Our
Welcome.
guest.
Hello, everyone.
Good night. Our guest tonight is no stranger to the Guyana Dialogue. She has been a guest several times. She is the minister within the Ministry of Housing, the Honorable Suzanne Rodrigues. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Good evening.
Dr. Tara, please go ahead.
Right. Thank you very much. First, let me apologize for that little hiccup. I was having internet trouble. So I have managed to resolve that. Honorable Minister, very nice to see you. We've been following your journey in Guyana as a minister. You've been doing some terrific work, and we are very happy to have you here. Before we start on our program proper, would you like to say anything about the upcoming nomination day and what's the PPP plan, just in a nutshell, for the benefit of our viewers?
So thank you very much, Dr. Tara Singh, for your kind words. Good evening to the panelists and the hosts and everybody who's watching and listening. It's my pleasure to be joining you and the members of the diaspora and all your viewers tonight. I look forward to a fruitful hour of discussion as we always have. And we are excited as we are approaching the nomination day on July 14th. Just the day before that, on the 13th of July, this Sunday, we will be officially launching our campaign. And so that is usually a massive event. And we anticipate that this year will be no different. If it's any different, it will be even more massive than the previous years. So we're looking forward to a very, very large rally, a large campaign launch. And I know that all of our supporters and well-wishers are looking forward to hearing from President Ali and Vice President Jagdeo and our Prime Minister, who will all be speaking at that rally. So we will be on a 2-day high energy, starting with our rally and then moving right into nomination day the following day. Nomination day is usually very, very big for us as well. Thousands of people, tens of thousands of people join us as we take to the streets to walk to GCOM to hand in our list of candidates. And so it's a very anticipated event. It is always lovely to join ordinary Guyanese who come along with us on that journey. And we are very proud of the list of candidates that we will put up for the election. The PPP slate always has Guyanese from all walks of life, all ethnicities, religion, young people, seniors, everyone. So the list, as the General Secretary said only today, will be reflective of Guyana.
Thank you very much. There's also news coming out from Guyana, I think today, that dual citizens cannot appear on the list unless they renounce their foreign citizenship.
That's right.
So that was supposed to happen before anyhow. Thank you very much for that update. Before we go to the Building Expo, that will happen in August, let's talk a little about your your achievement in the house lot allocation in the housing area. Um, I know you had set a target of 50,000 in 5 years, and many people doubted whether that could have been accomplished. But from the reports we have seen, you have even exceeded that. So can you please provide an update on this and how much you think how many house lots you can allocate before the end of the term, before August?
So you were right. When we were given this target of 50,000, um, it has never been done before in the history of housing programs in Guyana. And so it was very daunting at first, but we were able to benefit from knowing exactly what we had to do the moment we came into government. Because in 2020, we went to the electorate with a manifesto with specific commitments or promises in each sector. And in the housing sector, we knew exactly what the target was: 50,000 lots in 5 years, among other commitments in the housing sector. And we started immediately. While our main focus was ensuring that we deliver land to 50,000 families, we wanted also to ensure that people can acquire home ownership. So very early in our tenure, we removed VAT almost immediately, value-added tax on building and construction materials, to make construction of homes more affordable. We started the allocation program immediately. We had to start acquiring land because there was no housing area, new housing areas that were started under the previous government. In their 5 years in office, they delivered 7,000 house lots. We more than seven times, uh, we delivered more than seven times what they did in their 5 years. So we have surpassed the 50,000 target that we set ourselves. I think we're just over 52,000, and we're making allocations every day. We'll probably make about 55,000 allocations before the end of our term. So we're very proud of that achievement. But like I said, that wasn't the end of the housing program. We introduced several initiatives in the 5 years to help people to acquire home ownership. So we did even what we didn't promise to do. We started an aggressive construction drive, building homes through the ministry so that people can purchase a housing unit as opposed to just the land. So we work with the banks to make the process more seamless for people to apply for their mortgages. We were able to work with the banks also to reduce interest rates to below 5%. It was over 6% when we took office, and you can get a low income mortgage now for as low as about 3.9%, 4%. And this was in a global context where there was COVID, and because of inflation, countries around the world were raising interest rates as a result or as a response to inflation. In Guyana, we lowered our interest rates to one of the lowest rates in the history of our country, encouraging people to apply for mortgages and to secure those mortgages at low interest rates. We also increased the low income mortgage ceiling from 6 million, where it was when we took office, to $20 million. We raised it several times in the 5 years, taking it to $20 million now. So you can now access a low income mortgage from NBS or from any other commercial bank at the same rate. So the banks are competing for the housing market, and this is because the government's housing program is working. The banks are competing, which results in, of course, the benefit of the people who are looking for financing. We also introduced the steel and cement subsidy program, which helps people to start their construction. It also contributes towards their equity payment. That was very well received in 2022, which was an announcement by President Ali at the 2022 Building Expo. So that was a very welcomed initiative, especially for low-income families who were able to access that subsidy program to help them to start building their home. And we also increased the mortgage interest relief ceiling, doubling it from 15 million. The APNUAFC government had reduced the mortgage interest relief ceiling, thereby disqualifying um, hundreds of people from accessing that tax rebate. We have doubled it, so more young professionals now can get a write-off of all of the interest that they pay on their mortgage from the GRA. So more and more people are able to access that deductible. So all of these initiatives we introduced in the past 5 years to to really help us to deliver a more comprehensive housing program. So the allocation of lots, but ensuring that we help people to acquire home ownership, guiding them through that process, giving them subsidies to help them along the way, and we've had very good feedback from the public about the housing program, and we can see a very stark reduction in the amount of people coming to us on a daily basis. Because when we first took office, even in COVID, when we had no vaccines and we were trying to figure out how to keep ourselves safe and start our program in the middle of COVID, people were coming to us. Hundreds of people were coming to the ministry every day, lining up for hours to get their house lots because the demand was so great. So we can see that after having delivered 50,000 lots or in excess of 50,000 lots, we can see that all of those people who had old applications, that we've been able to clear off a lot of that in all of the regions. So much so that we've actually set new targets for ourselves already, because we govern, this party governs in a real way. And so we've been addressing the housing demand in each region, uh, based on the numbers we have there and the backlog we have there. So we're no longer talking about the manifesto commitment because we've already surpassed that. So we're working towards ensuring that in all of the regions that we are able to deliver housing as per the demand in each region.
Okay. The cost for house lot, just for the benefit of our viewers, roughly the approximate cost.
So it's about 250,000 to about $3 million. That's the range: low, moderate, middle, high income.
Okay. And how many housing projects you have going now?
Well, we have started about 95 new housing developments in the last 5 years. So the housing projects, if you're talking about the construction projects, those range in the hundreds, because each area we'd have to award that infrastructure work in lots. So each area would have 10, 15 lots or more. But we have been able to develop about 95 new housing areas within the last 5 years, and
Okay.
that's a tremendous number in such a short time.
Before I pass you on to Professor Boudou and Dr. Ganga, um, on what basis are these lots allocated?
I'm not sure what you mean by on what basis.
People
It's
have to
a
apply or they pull lots um, from a basket or something, or they apply for it and then
Yes, well, there's an application process. It's the same application process across all the regions.
mm,
You apply for the lot, and it's a it's based on the year that you made your application. You are shortlisted based on the year of your application, and based on the amount of lots that we are distributing on any one occasion. You're invited to come to the ministry or to one of our events, and you select the lot number from a lottery. So all of the
All
numbers
right.
are in an envelope, and
Uh,
then you select the
okay,
house.
quickly before I forget, what's the backlog? How many? I know you have a lot of applications. What's your backlog now in
So
applicant?
in region 4 alone, we have a backlog of about 44 or 45,000 people in region 4 alone. And that's because more and more people are coming to us every single day. So
Hmm.
while we may have a backlog of maybe over 50,000 in total or 60,000,
Hmm.
it's new applicants. So it's not people who have been waiting 10 years or 15
Yeah.
years. It's the amount of people that have come to us within the last 5 years alone.
Yeah. Art Minister, thank you very much. Professor Budu, over to you.
Minister, good to see you again. Um, and I know you did a terrific job there in
Thank you.
housing. It's probably one of the many places in the government that's doing very well, extremely well, perhaps. Uh,
Thank you.
there's some people who still complain that they're waiting a long period to get houses and house lots. Is the public really aware of the time and cost for the government to make a house lot available? You have to acquire the land and go through a number of series of things. Are they aware of this?
So we try as much as possible to get information out to people. I think maybe because we have been able to reach our targets, and in cases surpass our targets. Maybe I believe sometimes that it's lost on the public how difficult this process really is, and the amount of work that takes place behind the scenes that people don't see. Um, I think there's a real danger in people not recognizing the amount of investment it takes to acquire land, to develop housing areas, and to distribute lots that are service lots that are equipped with with the necessary infrastructure, that has the wells to serve the area, that has the electrical network to distribute electricity in the area. So all of that is going on behind the scenes, but people see the allocation process and it looks very simple. I've tried using my social media platform, for example, making short videos on TikTok and disseminating on Facebook and on other platforms, trying to explain the process to people. um, I don't know if it works, if everybody recognizes how difficult it can be and how long it can take. But we have been doing this in an aggressive manner, working with other agencies like the Guyana Lands and Survey, Gaisuku, NISIL, to acquire land from them. Gaisuku, of course, needs land as well for agriculture, for the sugar industry, and for other purposes. And and we have competing interests. So we need the government's support. We need the president's support in acquiring land for housing purposes, for housing development, then giving us the financial allocation in the budget to be able to develop these areas into thriving housing areas, to distribute lots in these areas, and to help us finance the other programs that I mentioned before, to help people to acquire home ownership, to help them to move past becoming landowners alone and becoming property holders. So we try as much as possible to explain that process to people. But Professor, they say the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So when people get when they benefit from the housing program, or they receive a housing unit, they can talk about the difference it has made in their lives. People watching on who have not benefited directly from it may not understand that experience, but all of us know that owning a home is perhaps one of the largest investments you would make in your lifetime. It's one of the most impactful investments in your family, in your own stability, and in ensuring that you have um, an inheritance to leave for your children, and an asset that can multiply over the years and increase your net worth. And nobody knows to do that better than President Ali. And I believe we have benefited tremendously from him being a past housing and water minister, because he understands the level of investment that it takes to support the sector, and he understands also the impact that the housing program has, and on people, and its ability to really transform the lives of families. And that's why I believe that he has supported us over the years, through the budgets and through his guidance and experience from serving in this ministry.
Minister, I have complained a lot to ministers on this show, including you, uh, that you guys did a terrific job with your messaging is poor, right? And it's not getting out to the people. If I look at your website today, just before comment on there, and I think something like uh, a, a site in where they could go and see what's the process. You have done a lot of site areas already, and show them, for example, one area, what's the cost and what the time it takes to get the house lot for one area. So you have a lot of data that you can show and point to people, because you go on social media, it's for people who have very short memory, right? And they just flash it, but they don't get the full picture of what's going on.
Yeah.
Just to find
Sometimes we're so consumed by
yeah,
just the
mm,
vast amount of work that we
yeah,
have to do, um,
yeah. I
that we're so
understand that because
consumed
your
by that,
priority is
that you want
different.
to
Your
get the
priority is
work
that.
done. You
Yeah.
you want people to benefit from the program, and we have, as you said, tremendous numbers, fantastic numbers. 47% of all of the allocations that we made in the last 5 years went to women. That's in any country, or to any international organization anywhere. That's a tremendous number. That's a number that people would compliment us on,
Yeah.
of delivering equity and gender parity and support for women. 54% of the allocations went to young people between the ages of 21 and 35, allowing them to own a property earlier in their life, giving them a longer time to acquire wealth over their lifetime, giving them a start, an early start, ahead of their parents or grandparents, setting them on a different trajectory in life. 90% of all the land that we have distributed in the last 5 years went to low, moderate, and middle income earners, moving the lower class into a middle class, growing our middle class. Every country depends on a growing, thriving middle class, to have a vibrant economy. That's something that we've been focused on, and this housing program has allowed us to do exactly that. So these are the demonstratives, the products, the fruits of the housing program and the housing policy on the People's Progressive Party civic government.
Well, you just confirm what I told you, right? Where is this data, right? You see, there's a marketing issue here, right?
Yeah.
You have to market what you have done to her. I don't want to belabor that, but let's move on. Right? What is the percentage of houses on house lots that you distribute?
We don't collect that data
Mhm.
on the occupancy maybe until later on. So because these housing areas are new, so
Mhm.
they're only 5 years old. if you go to the first set that we started developing um, at the end of 2020, 2021. If you go into these areas, most of the land there, people have not built as yet because they became accessible at different times over the last 5 years. So in the past, when we when we would allocate a housing area, in the year that we would allocate that housing area, the infrastructure development would be done the following year. The budgetary allocation would be made in the next budget cycle. And so people had to wait at least a year or going on sometimes 2 years for the infrastructure development to be completed. So we've had that situation in the last 4 years. Within the last year, so coming up to 2025, we've effectively been able to catch up with that. So I can tell you that all the people who have been allocated within the last 5 years, including the people that are being allocated this year in 2025, they will be able to access their house lots in the year 2025. So for the first time in the 5 years, we've been able to catch up now with the allocation program and completing the infrastructure work within the same budget cycle, so within the same year. So people now have a much shorter waiting time from the time they are allocated and they start to make payments on their house lots to the time that they can access that house lot. So now we expect the construction process to move much faster because people will be gaining access within months now as opposed to a year or a year and a half. They can now access their lots within the same year. So now we expect the construction to pick up in a massive way.
Can you tell us about this Expo 2025? I know you had it.
Oh, okay. Hold on, Professor Wood. We'll go to the expo just now,
Okay.
but we need to take a short break.
All right.
Shamiza?
Yeah, we will take a break and we'll be right back.
Okay, before we go to the housing, let's get Dr. Ganga's clarification or question for the minister. Dr. Ganga?
Yes, welcome again, Honorable Susan. Nice to see you. You have a very challenging ministry. I'm so impressed. You have to deal with 44 to 45,000 backlog in Region 4 alone. That's a formidable task. I want to congratulate you and the administration for making interest and taxes deductible, as well as the subsidies on cement and steel. Now, one of the areas which I personally was involved with when I worked at the Bank of Guyana was the access to bridging finance, which allowed me to plan my project in the Republic Park. So, do we have bridging finance available to new homeowners, builders?
What exactly is that?
That's like you get your plans for the from the architect to build a house, but you don't have any money at the time. But your application, let's say with an insurance company or with a bank, is in process. You've completed that step, but you still don't have any money, and you want to go ahead with the project to move it ahead. So you need bridging finance to do that. You need cash.
I Yes, I understand. I'm not sure how the local banks here treat with that, because it's not something that is discussed, or that we've had to intervene in. Um, this I assume is more of like a short term loan. While you is that right?
Well, in my case,
While you're dispensing of one property, you're 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 purchasing another one.
no, it's the same property, a first time owner builder, but you need money to start. So in my case, I had my
But I
employer
don't see the
giving.
difference in a mortgage, because so how the mortgages are done, here. So there are some banks that require the equity down payment. In some cases, no equity down payment is required. So we've been able to work with the banks to remove some of that requirement. But where it is still necessary, our allottees or beneficiaries from the housing program can use the subsidy that we've given them to start the construction of their home. So with the value of that subsidy and the value of the land, they can then access disbursements from the banks to start their construction, and then it's dispersed in phases throughout the construction process. So they're not starting from zero. The banks have recognized the value of the land, not necessarily what they paid for it, but the actual value, or the market value after we've put in the infrastructure. So if a low income earner paid $250,000 for the land, the banks might look at the value of the land as $1 million, because or more, because we spend $5 million to develop a single house lot. That's the amount of investment that it takes from the public sector to develop a single house lot. And so that's really the actual uh, value that you would have to put into it, just to access the land.
That's an equivalent process you described there, because they do have a startup, some help at the starting up point.
Yeah.
The second question I had was, can a person who already owns a home benefit from this housing program by applying and unawares to the authorities? Can that person own a second home through the program? Do we filter
So
for that?
the policy is, you must be Guyanese, you must be at least 21 years old, and you must not own property, whether acquired through the public sector or privately. Um, so that's the criteria. It's really those three main things. And when you receive your house lot and you are given an allocation letter, it says clearly on that letter that you are receiving this offer on the basis of these criteria, including that you must not own property prior to this one, and you sign to that. So that I think answers your question. But a lot of people think if they buy property privately, that they can still qualify for the government housing program, but it's actually a disqualifying factor. And even if we don't know that upfront, what I think a lot of people don't recognize as well is that the Central Housing and Planning Authority does not process the title. So all titles have to go to the registry for processing. So even if we don't pick that up through the ministry, by the time it gets to the titling part of the process, the registry would be able to pick up that this person has a title or a transport that we have processed for them in the past, and therefore you have a problem here.
I just have one last question, and this has to do with what I read on the website, crafting sustainable communities. Could you expand a little on that for me, please?
So all of our housing areas are designed by a group of in-house architects and urban planners. We do all of our designs in-house. And all of our housing areas are developed in a sustainable way, as you mentioned, a self-sufficient way. We have mixed-use development in all of our housing communities. So we have blended residential developments. So you have the low income, moderate income, middle income, and high income families who would all be in the same housing area. We have parts of the housing development that will be zoned for commercial and industrial use. We ensure that corridors are maintained for utilities. We ensure that we leave reserved sites for recreational spaces, for playgrounds, for the future construction of schools, hospitals, police station, fire station, and the likes. So all of these services and amenities that we focus on, that we ensure that we build out these communities in a sustainable way. So that's what we mean by building sustainable and resilient housing areas. Housing areas are housing developments that can stand on their own, and that once fully developed, people who live there, who occupy that area, can have access to all of the basic services that they will need to make their community or their neighborhood a wholesome and sustainable community.
Thank you very much, Minister. Professor Buru, over with the question with the Housing Expo now.
Yeah, Mr. You have another expo. This is how many now you have?
I think this is our fourth.
Mm-hmm.
I think we came back in 2022. Yes, because of COVID, we didn't have the one in 2021. So from 2022, we started.
Mm-hmm. Now, what is the aim of this one different from the others? What is it that you're trying to achieve here in terms of measurable impact? For example, investment targets and that kind of thing.
So the Building Expo has really evolved over I'd have to say, maybe decades now, because it started under President Ali. I think Dr. Jagdeo was president when we first started the Building Expo, and it's become a household name now. So a lot of Guyanese families look forward to the International Building Expo every year. And so this year we didn't want to deprive the public of the expo, even though we're in the election period, because of course we plan for these things annually. And we like to ensure, our government likes to ensure that there is predictability and consistency with all of our programs. We know that there are a lot of overseas companies as well who and local companies who plan their annual budgets around Building Expo too. So Building Expo is a feature for them when they are planning their budgets annually. And so a lot of people were calling for us to still have the expo this year. So this year, the Expo is themed The Road to Success, Guyana 2030 and beyond. And so we are looking to put on an exposition that is even bigger than the housing sector alone. So all of our designs and all of our exhibitors will be coordinated around the development and the transformation that has taken place in Guyana within the last 5 years from all of the sectors. So we're not just focusing on housing, we're focusing on health, on education, on the security sector, and on infrastructure generally, because all of these sectors have seen remarkable achievements in the last 5 years: the building of new schools, the new hospitals, all of the new highways and bridges that are under construction. And it really gives us an opportunity at the end of our term to really sum up everything that we have done and all of our achievements over the last 5 years. So I'm looking forward very much to this expo because it will capture a lot of the things that have been achieved under the leadership of Dr. Irfan Ali, our president, and 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 we're looking forward for it to be, as customary, a family event. Of course, the kids are home from school, so families usually come out in thousands. We usually have visitors in excess of 100,000 people that would pass through the expo over the 4 days. So it's a highly anticipated event. People come and they have an opportunity to look at new construction techniques, new building materials. They get to see what the government is doing in all of the sectors. They get to meet the president and the vice president and the prime minister and all of the ministers who would be at the expo on different days. They get to interact with the attendees. So it's a family event, and we look forward to it being a massive event this year as well.
Now, you've just said this is the fourth one, right? So you've done three before. Is there
Yes.
any public reporting on the impact, both economic and social impact it had on the country?
I didn't get that. Sorry.
Is there any public reporting? Is there a report that you produce saying, look, this expo has so much impact on the economy of the country, direct and indirect, as you point out, and social also, because you say a lot of people attend these
So
things.
right. So that's the feedback that we usually get from the private sector. Last year we had over 20 foreign companies that participated in the expo. New companies from as far as Africa and the Middle East participating in the expo. So the expo has earned a reputation, an international reputation. So companies start contacting us from the beginning of the year on how they can participate in the expo and how they can enter the local market. All of the local companies, especially the banks, usually give us feedback on the hundreds of mortgages that they would have approved over the 4 days at the expo. It's usually a wonderful experience for the banks because a lot of people feel more comfortable approaching one of these banking institutions in an informal setting like at the Building Expo, as opposed to walking into their commercial offices. So they usually increase their customer base by hundreds, each bank, over the 4 days of the International Building Expo. So one of the sectors that it impacts tremendously is the banks, and they
No,
would
but
they would give us
the
their.
question I'm asking you is if whether there was any public reporting. A report came out saying, listen, this is the impact of these expo, right,
But you would
on the
find that in
economy.
several places, not all consolidated into one report done by the government or by this sector. But throughout the 4 days, there would usually be releases and so on from us at the ministry, but from each financial institution on what they're accomplishing or what they're achieving over the 4 days. And a lot of medium scale businesses um, use the Building Expo as a platform to expand and grow their businesses and even to launch new businesses. So the Building Expo has been um, a platform that has helped a lot of startups in the country as well, and we hear those stories every year when people come to us.
May I suggest before passing on to Tara again that you actually put this together, because this is thing that actually again the
Yes,
market is
coming
very
back to
important.
your first point about telling
Yes,
the story
yeah,
and
you again
tying
you
it all
see
together.
it's done a lot, and people don't really, it doesn't internalize to them how much you guys have done,
Yeah.
and so they pick up things that people easily find ways of criticizing, and they use that,
Yeah.
but then it takes a lot
All
for you
right.
to get the house lot. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Tara.
Good point, Professor Budur. I hope the minister take this seriously. If you get a comprehensive report, that is so great. Um, Dr. Ganga, your
Yeah,
question
yes,
on the Housing Expo.
yes. This has to do with showcasing the model homes. My cousin who was in Florida, he built these homes, and you could visit the homes and look it through the homes by the water and so on. Do we have a permanent site for our expo where you could have site tours and visits to look at the models? How do we handle the models in showcasing, let's say, a two-bedroom and or a three-bedroom house? How do we handle that?
So every year at the expo, we usually have the the models. So full size models, not some 3D model that you're looking at. The houses are built and they are actually in the expo. So that's usually where the longest line is, as a matter of fact. It's at the model homes. So it's built to scale, real life size homes. We furnish it so that people can see the square footage, can see the spaces, can envision their own homes when they walk into one of these houses that we've constructed. So that is a feature, a permanent feature of the International Building Expo. Every year we have the expo, we have the model homes that are there, and we have guided tours throughout the homes there. So we'd have our engineers there to take questions from the public. We'd have interior designer there to respond to questions on how they could use different spaces. And so throughout these guided tours, all day for the 4 days, the public can go and witness and touch and feel how the homes are supposed to be constructed and how they're supposed to look and feel.
That's awesome. Um, Now, with regard to investor engagement for residential housing communities and commercial plazas and so forth, can you make some statements about the expected outcomes for the investor engagements?
So there there seems to be a growing expectation that the government would provide land for commercial development. And sometimes I think people forget that there's an open market and a real estate market that people can survey and look at and purchase land for commercial development. We have been assisting in that regard in the last 5 years because, as I mentioned, as part of our sustainable design, we we reserve land for commercial and industrial purposes. So an investor can come to us and make a proposal, and that proposal is considered by the planners in the ministry, and based on what business activity you wish to engage in. They will make an assessment on the viability of that business, and then where we need to zone you, or where we need to locate your business, based on what we have already approved in different areas. The commercial land is sold at current market value. So land for commercial development is not subsidized by the government. So that helps us in our cross subsidization for the residential house lots that we are building at a subsidized price. And that's the process. It's a simple process for applying for commercial land. And the Expo also provides a range of services that would help people who are not only looking for land but looking to develop some new business, and be able to use the platform of the Expo as a networking platform to help them to establish their businesses here, especially foreign investors and even local investors looking for partners and looking for people with experience in particular sectors.
Yeah, I had 60 students from Poland at the Florida International Conference. And one of the surprising things there, they said all the materials that are used at the expo are recycled. So, do we do any kind of recycling of the boots and other materials used there? Do people, for example, come and buy up a boot and take it somewhere else? Do we recycle?
I'm going to have to look at that one.
Yeah,
We have,
that was a strange one. I was amazed.
yeah,
Yes.
because all of these are outfitted with your own material when you book one of the spaces. Of course, the infrastructure you wouldn't be able to take, because the infrastructure belongs to somebody else who prepared the site. But all of the printing materials and so on, you can take. But I was intrigued when you mentioned recycled materials, because I remember in one year, I think it was 20, I can't remember if it was 2022 or 2023, we had somebody who actually constructed homes. One of the sample homes were made of blocks that were compressed recycled material. So that was one of the interesting models that we had on showcase, using only recycled material. And so it was a modular home, and it could be fit up almost like a Lego. So that was one of the interesting models that we had on display from a partnership, a joint venture from a local company and a foreign company.
Okay,
Okay.
Dr. Ganga, your last point.
Oh, can you explain the schedule for the digital infrastructure?
Which digital infrastructure are we talking about?
Well, for the community, there must be some kind of technology for internet and so forth.
Within our housing areas.
Yes, within the housing areas. That would come after, right? I suppose.
Yes, yes. So we are responsible from government side, apart from the roads and bridges and drainage and so on. We are responsible for equipping the housing areas with electricity and water.
Yeah.
So the telecommunications and internet and so on are done by the private companies. So
Yeah.
we are always in conversation with them, so they'll know which areas we are developing, so they can plan ahead as well to equip these areas with the cables and connectivity, because these days nobody's going to move in unless they have internet. That's one of the first things that they need. It's an essential item now before people move in, but that is done through the private sector. And so we involve them throughout the process as well to make that investment.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Minister. This has been a very stimulating conversation, but like our good things, we have to come to an end. Shamisa, you have any questions for the Minister from the general public?
We do have questions for the minister. So if it's okay with you, Dr. Tara, I'll get right into it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So our first question is from Mr. Rajendra Singh. He says, Minister, is there any truth to the Facebook post of Bailey Best in Jabor where they were showing house lots underwater and not serviced by either drinking water and electricity in Region 4?
So I heard subsequently that there was a visit by a group of individuals from a new political party that was in one of the housing areas on the East Bank. So we checked it out, and a lot was not said to the public. And I believe a day or so after, the ministry issued a statement on that area. So the first thing, there were a number of misrepresentations or blatant lies that were told during the visit and on the live that was done by these individuals. One of the things they said is that it was occupied by Venezuelans, which is not true, because Venezuelans cannot access the housing program. I mentioned during the show that you have to be Guyanese to benefit from the government housing program. So there are no Venezuelans living there. If there were anybody there that was speaking Spanish or someone that is bilingual, they have been naturalized Guyanese or returning Guyanese, and we have a growing number of those here in the country, but not Venezuelans. The second thing was that that area that they went to were was is now populated by former squatters. So we had a program where we moved a number of people, scores of people from the Sea Dam, the East Bank Sea Dam, Horstellin, Farm, uh, Peters Hall, and so on, that were squatting along the Sea Dam there. It took us several years to remove all of those people, and we're still working on it. We still haven't completed it. People who were squatting on the Sea Dam. Those were former squatters, didn't have any land, didn't own any land. Many of them didn't even come through the application process at the ministry, but they were squatting there. And we reached out to help to move them. And we put them in the area that was visited by these individuals. So these were people who had no land before, and we gave them an opportunity to come through the formal allocation process, and they are now landowners. They have paid the subsidized costs for their land. Their titles are being processed, or some have already been processed in that area. And at the time of the visit, we had recently awarded contracts for the upgrading of the infrastructure in that area. So there are two phases of infrastructure that takes place. The first phase is to allow access to the area. So the roads that are built to allow access to the site. In the second phase, we install the electrical network, and we drill wells and connect to the network, the water distribution network in the area, to provide water for the people who have occupied that area. That is the second phase of infrastructure. And we have already awarded the contracts for the second phase infrastructure. So the way that the story was told was not accurate, and they did not acknowledge that those people who are living there were former squatters and are now landowners. It was also not acknowledged that the location that they were given right off the highway allows them to multiply many times over their net worth or the price that they paid for the land, which is a low income land, but we didn't put them at the back of anywhere. They're just a stone throw away from the 4-lane Heroes Highway, allowing them to be in a prime location for which they can maximize the value of their land. So none of this was told in the story by the gentleman who visited the area. Of course, there was work to do in the area, but had they contacted the ministry or tried to find out if there's any upcoming work that is going to be done in the area, they would have been provided with that information. But that was not their purpose. Their purpose there was to sensationalize and to zoom in on some area that the work is still ongoing. We are developing 95 new housing areas. All of the areas cannot be perfect at the same time. There has never been a housing program that has been done on such a massive scale. There's going to be things that we're going to have to clean up and improve on as we go along. But of course, like I said, those gentlemen went there for a different purpose.
Well, thank you for clearing that up. Now move on to Mr. Jailal. He says, "Good evening, Honorable Minister Rodrigues. Congratulations on achieving a landmark which is above the manifesto. On your last appearance, you had indicated that your ministry will look into the problem of bars and nightclubs given licenses to operate in residential areas. Lenora is a densely populated residential area which suffers from continuous noise, traffic, drugs, and health nuisance as a result of the bars. These problems have appeared in the news media by many people nationally. Will there be any relief measures?"
So, just in the same way we have policies and criteria that govern the housing program, it's the same way that we have policies that govern our approval system through the Central Housing and Planning Authority. Liquor licenses are not permissible in housing areas. So we don't grant people licenses within a to sell alcohol or to open nightclubs or um, shops that sell not off liquor license but to consume on the premises. We don't permit that in the housing area. You cannot have a liquor license for a residential housing area. People are opening shops and are selling alcohol in residential areas, but they don't have a license to do so. So they haven't come to Central Housing and Planning Authority, and we give them permission to do that. It's all part of the informal economy in Guyana. And you know that is a common problem across the country. People have a house lot, and we have a lot of people who make things and they sell and so on. This is how Guyana has evolved over the years. And they open a little grocery shop downstairs, and they're selling food or all kinds of things. And then these things sometimes evolve, and you look at the activity that they're doing, and then it may appear harmless, and then eventually they start to have people coming and staying there and consuming alcohol on the premises. That is not permissible. And so when those are reported to us, we would visit, we'd serve a notice for them to desist from doing so. But the enforcement of it, we rely also on the police force to help us to do this enforcement. So if you have people selling drugs and so on, it's not a matter for the Central Housing and Planning Authority. It's a matter for which the police should be responding, or if there's violence in the area, it's a matter for the police to get involved. So while we understand that people are subjected to a lot of these businesses within the communities. There's also the criticism sometimes that we face that are it's only big businesses and the small shops are going out of business. So you have two rhetorics sometimes coming from the public. One is to promote homogeneous businesses and small businesses within the communities, and then the other is that these businesses are a nuisance and people don't want them within the area. So it's a juggling act that we have to do as a government. But anybody who applies for a liquor license in a residential area will not be granted such license because it's not permitted by the Central Housing and Planning Authority. And where we get reports, we respond to these reports. And if it's something that is beyond us, then the matter has to be reported to the Guyana Police Force for enforcement purposes. But we issue all of the notices in writing that we are supposed to issue, but we do as much as we could do. When we understand that sometimes it's not solving the problem, but we do as much from our side as we can do.
All right, thank you so much. This question is from Simba Watson. Minister Rodrigues, is it possible for an update on the professional homes, which is 1,000 homes that was announced to be built in Linden?
So Linden, as you know, is not a stronghold of the People's Progressive Party Civic, but it is a region that we have made significant investment in as part of our overall housing program. I am pleased to say that we have allocated 2,600 house lots in Linden, or I should say in Region 10, over the last 5 years. During the previous government, I think the number was just about 400 house lots that were allocated in that region. So we did at least 2,600 lots, allowing the ordinary people of Region 10 to access housing, to own their own land. We had a situation under the previous government where people in the government took land for themselves. We have spoken about this a lot over the last 5 years, speaking about how people in the former government took land in Region 10 for themselves and did not allocate land for housing purposes, giving people, the residents of Region 10, an opportunity to own their own land or to build their own homes. So we have, in addition to allocating 2,600 lots, we have started building homes there. I believe we have constructed just under 100 homes there in Region 10, and it's something that we will continue to do over the next term. And I say that with all confidence because I believe that people will re-elect us based on our track record. And the General Secretary of our party, the President, has also said that there will be continuity in the housing program. So people don't have to fear that the housing program will somehow change or that we will stop distributing land for housing or stop building homes. The next 5 years will be focused on a lot of what Professor Boudou spoke about ensuring that those 50,000 people who are now landowners, that we can help them to become homeowners, that we can help them with construction in the next 5 years and ensure that they can build a property, something that they're proud of. That's something that we look forward to doing in the next 5 years, making more interventions to help people to build their own homes. And so Linden Region 10 will be a beneficiary of this housing construction program. We promise the people in Bartica as well that we want to build hundreds of homes there in Bartica. And this is something that we're constantly working on. But we're also facing a challenge with the shortage of contractors who are willing to work in the housing program. So we are trying as much as possible. We've built close to 4,000 homes in the last 5 years, and we are almost running out of capacity of people who want to participate in the housing construction program, because when you come through our ministry and you get a housing unit, it's much cheaper than if you had to go on the open market and find somebody to build a single unit, because we are utilizing economy of scale to
Right.
try to control prices and to make it more affordable. So there are not a lot of contractors who are lining up to build homes for the ministry, because you know people prefer to make more money on one unit.
Of course.
But so that has been one of the challenges that we've had, is the rate of construction of the houses. So that is something that we're definitely going to pay closer attention to in the next term of our government. So I would urge the person who asked the question to stay tuned and to see what else the government will do in the
Um,
coming years.
so quickly, in terms of if there is contractors that are watching, is there any incentives to them? Yes, it might be a little bit cheaper than doing, something privately, but is there any incentives for them doing it with your ministry?
So usually we help people. Let's say they're doing a prefab, for
Hmm.
example. They have to bring in machinery and equipment. They have to bring in materials. We would work with them to give them concessions to
Okay.
bring these in to participate in the housing program. And but you're coming in, a lot of them are looking forward to the opportunity for being able to work for the government, and to be able to prove their skills, and to get more work. But you have an opportunity here to you can still make money in the housing construction program, because you can get a dozen homes or 100 homes to build based on your capacity. But you have to perform at the same time. And if you know to manage, if you can manage your construction well, you'd be able to make money while doing that without extorting the beneficiaries. And that's something that we've kept a close eye on. That's why so many people want houses through the ministry, because they know it will cost them more to engage a contractor to build a single home. But there's so much work now in Guyana, Shamiza, that people can pick and choose and
Yeah.
find a lot of work
Heard.
on the open market. So
Yeah.
so it's difficult to get capacity now to do this construction.
I think it's important to note too that you have to be able and willing to work, because that seems to be one of the main things. We'll take one more question and then we'll have to wrap up. This one is from Anthony Light. He says, good night, everyone. Honorable Rodrigues, will there be any lot allocations at the Expo or any outreach for Region 3 or 4?
Yeah, so the Dream Realize allocation and land distribution,
Mhm.
um, and title distribution, excuse me, allocation and title distribution is always a feature of the Building Expo. So this year we will have similar type activity, but we also want to focus heavily this year on signing people up for their agreement of sale, because as I mentioned, so we have over 50,000 allottees. We have processed about 19,000 titles in the last 5 years. And so we want to be able to move towards titling for the other people who are waiting for their agreement of sale and titles. So we have a lot of work still to do to move people beyond their allocation, to get them to get their documents sorted and to get their titles in their hands. And we're going to have um, an expansive activity at the expo to have people come into us and sign up for their agreements of sale and titles at the expo. We do plan to visit Region 3 as well, or have them come to the expo. We haven't decided as yet, but there are more lots to be distributed in Wales in Region 3. That's a big new housing area. Will be a thriving housing development over there in Region 3, especially once the bridges is opened and in use. So Region 3, Region 4, they can expect a lot of the same over the past years at the expo.
Perfect. I know someone was asking if you're going to be in Wales, if you can say when you will be in Wales.
I don't have an exact date now. We'll publish
No
it when
problem.
when we'll be there.
Now, in terms of the housing, house lots, right? We've heard a lot from you tonight in regards to that, and I've seen the comments. I have people saying they applied 20 years ago, 10 years ago, right? I know you said there is a backlog. Is there a priority in terms of how you process the lots? Like, is there a priority? Is there anything that you look at? You also mentioned that women have gotten, a vast amount of lots. Is there anything that's a priority or anything that these people that have applied for lands many years ago, is there anything that they should be doing differently or should be doing right now to have their lots?
So Shabiza, a lot of the people who this is from my personal experience, what I've witnessed. We have said very clearly that the people in Region 4, if you have an old application before 2019, you can come into us and you will be allocated your house lot. In the other regions, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we are working on those years up to 2024. I
Okay.
still sometimes see people talking about waiting 20 years, and I'm not sure where they are because our experience has been the folks who claim that they have been waiting 20 years are not living in Guyana. And if they are not living here and they applied 20 years ago and they went away, and there's no updated information from you, or we can't get in touch with you, there's no way for you to be able to get your house lot. So many of the people whom I've met when they've come with old applications and I ask them, what happened in the last 15 years, 20, where were you? It's always that they were overseas, they were living overseas, and they're now back home, or they're still living overseas and they're visiting Guyana now, and they decided to follow up on their application because they see that we've been allocating a massive amount of land. But hardly now you would find anybody who's living in Guyana and has been coming to the ministry, updating their application, and still waiting after 20 years. We don't see that anymore. So usually these are one-off cases, and there's a reason perhaps why they have not been allocated their land as yet. There's always more to the story.
There's always more to the story, and we've seen that over and over. We will now ask you for your closing. Um,
So thank you very much, Dr. Tara, Professor Bodu, Dr. Ganga, Shamiza. It's always a pleasure to join you and the members of the diaspora and everybody who's watching us. It's always a joy for me to speak about our track record in government. It's been a privilege for me over the past 5 years. And I'm taking this as my final program before the end of our first term
You never
and the
know.
next and the next election. So it's really been a privilege to serve in the government under the leadership of President Ali or Vice President Jagdeo, an amazing group of colleagues who have worked tremendously hard in the last 5 years to deliver a massive program. We all were given a very, very big task, and I'm proud to say that all of my colleagues in the entire government, we've been able to surpass in many cases the achievements and the promises that we made to the people of our country. There are still things left to be done. We acknowledge that the work continues. There's a lot of work that is remaining to be done. The next 5 years has to be focused a lot on quality, on ensuring that our people are comfortable, are happy, and that is something that we want to be more focused on in the years. People can be more comfortable in their communities, addressing a lot of the community issues that you raised, Shamisa, because when we go into communities, we have to face these same realities, and people ask us these same questions in the different community meetings. So we have to garbage collection, a lot of simple things like that can make people uncomfortable. A lot of those things we have to address and address definitively in the coming years, and it's something that we are discussing, and it's something that will form part of the commitments that we make going forward. So a lot of work has been done, but there's a lot of work still left to do. And I think the people of Guyana can trust us to get that work done because we've been able to deliver. In our first term, we've kept all of our promises, we've delivered on our commitments, and they can trust us in the future to ensure that we do the same going forward, and they can trust us too with their future and with the future of their kids, and ensuring that we have a viable economy, and that we have a country that is safe, and a country that is thriving, and they're proud to call home. So thank you.
Beautifully said.
Um,
Beautifully said. Thank you, Dr. Tara.
Shamisa, you just give me a sec. Honorable
Mhm.
Minister, would you explore the possibility of doing a consolidate or thinking of doing a consolidated report on the upcoming Expo, Building Expo 2025? Appointed Professor Boudou raised with you.
Yes, with something that we will explore,
Yeah,
definitely.
that'll be great, and we want to thank you very much for your
Minister,
knowledge and
sometimes
experience, commitment. So we know you are very active and doing a great work. We are very proud of you and continue to walk on that path. And the days ahead will be glorious.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Chamisa.
definitely. Sometimes I feel like I work, for the government too, because I get questions about house lots and what am I gonna. I applied so many years ago, so I can understand how you feel with all the questions that you get. But it's part of the job, and it's just what it is. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. It's always a joy having you here, and you always have so much knowledge of, your ministry. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Thank you to our panel for being here this evening, and to all of our viewers. Until next time, I'm your host, Shamiza Ali, and this is the Guyana Dialogue. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Um, Minister,